Well, hi there, and welcome to week 4 of our study of A Crack in My Vertical. And again, if you haven't gotten that book yet, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com and order that book. The Bible study is in the book that we're talking about right now, and we are on, as I said, week 4, so we're about halfway through. And so this week, and remember we're talking about those 5 pillars of Christian living, and that is love, peace, joy, contentment, and harmony, the 5 pillars that I believe we all can live on and in if we really and truly understand our relationship with Jesus and our relationship with God and the Holy Spirit. And if that's intact, I consider that our vertical relationship. And if we're not feeling one of those 5, then the assumption, at least, and I believe it's a safe assumption, is that there's a crack in your vertical. There's something missing in your vertical relationship as opposed to looking out at everybody else. And so this week we've already done love, peace, joy, and this week we are doing contentment. And the idea of discontentment can be that whole, I can see the cup half empty, or I see it half full, is the ones who are, positive attitude, and the discontent people, or I see it half empty. And, I suppose that's part of it, but it is a lot deeper than that. The idea of contentment for the believer, or a believer living in discontentment, it's a lot more than just dissatisfaction or longing for more. It's also more than just seeing things as not good enough. So discontentment for the believer is ultimately, and hear me now, because it is ultimately dissatisfaction with what God has given you. You're literally dissatisfied with God. We may look at our husband or our house or our children or our lives or our jobs or our clothes or whatever and not be content. But for the believer, if I look at what I have or where I am or who I'm with, and I say, I don't think this is enough, for the believer, that means I'm looking at God and saying, you haven't given me enough. And what you've decided to do isn't quite enough. I appreciate you're trying, but it's not quite enough. So discontentment for the believer is a much stronger and I think more important issue than simply for the non-believer. Because the non-believer, someone who doesn't know Jesus, discontentment literally is, I don't like where I am and I feel like I should have more. For the believer, it means you're not trusting that God already has what's best for you and has given you exactly what you need, and what is the desire of your heart may not be what you need at that moment. So, we can feel discontent with spouses, with our lives, with children, as I said a second ago, and then wonder why we can't get to that place. If you're feeling any of those things, if you're feeling like, I deserve more, and I know I've been there. If you've read the book, I tell a lot of stories in the book about myself. I am my own best bad example. But I talk about how I went through a lot of periods in my life recently and far in the past, where I would think that I deserved more, or I should be doing more, or I should be allowed to do more, I should have more, or why is God not giving me more? There is a lot of times that when we believe those things, we have to realize it's not about what I don't have. It's literally about that crack in my vertical. Because if I know, and if I can rest in who God is, and my relationship with Jesus is intact the way that it should be and the way that it can be, then I will be satisfied. I can be content in my circumstances, even if those circumstances are less than ideal, because it is the trust that God has what He has for me purposefully, that He has a greater plan. One of the stories I tell a lot of my clients sometimes about this, it's an analogy that I've come to illustrate it, is when my youngest son Miles was about, I think he was maybe 3 or 4, and we were going through the grocery store one day, and he was hungry. It was like 4:30 in the afternoon, and he was hungry. And so in his little 3 or 4-year-old mind, I'm hungry, and so therefore I need to eat. And so we were passing we're in the donut aisle, and we were passing some powdered donuts, which were his favorite at the time, which, no mom wants their child will have powdered donuts on the best of days, because you're going to have the mess of the world to clean up. But that wasn't even the point. So we're going down the aisle, he's sitting in the cart, and he looks over the powdered donuts. He goes, "Mama, I'm hungry. Can I have those donuts?" And I said, "No." Now it was 4:30. I may have said yes if it was sometime early in the afternoon or morning or whatever, but it was 4:30. We were going to be eating in like an hour. And and that evening I knew I was making macaroni and cheese, which was his favorite meal. And so I just said, "No, son, you can't have any." Well, he didn't throw a fit. Miles didn't usually do that. He was a thinking child. So for him, he looked just dumbfounded, like, "But I'm hungry." and there's donuts. So why can't I have them? And he just kind of looked at me like, what? And I remember kind of giggling because I know my boy, and he, in his brain, he was trying to, work out, why is mama not giving me what I need? I'm hungry and she won't give me what I want. And I don't understand that. This feels like that she doesn't love me. And so, and even though I let it pass, and he never said much else, he just kind of went through the store quiet and sullen and pouting because he wasn't getting what he wanted, and he was trying to figure it out in his head why mama would keep that from him. Well, what Miles didn't know as a 3 or 4 year old was that dinner was in an hour. Miles didn't know that mama had made his favorite meal. All he knew was that right then, this was going to fulfill the need as he saw it, and it was something that he would like. I knew it would spoil his appetite. And I often think about that when it comes to God. When you and I are discontent, and we've decided that where I am or what I have or what I've got is not good enough, God, why won't you give me this? Why can't I have a new job? Why can't I have a new husband? Why can't I have new clothes? Why can't I have that new car? Why are you telling me no about these things when obviously I need them? Well, God, what we don't know, and what God's often looking down at us and saying, goodness gracious, child, dinner's in an hour. I've got your favorite thing coming, but it's not here yet. And if you do this, it's going to spoil the thing that I have that's so much better. And so I think about that analogy often, and I think of God up in heaven saying, Deb, I got dinner in an hour, just hold on, because I have what's best for you waiting. So when God says no and leaves you in a place where you think you're discontent, it's not because he doesn't love you or he's taking his eyes off. I mean, I'm just a mom, a human mom. And in my humanness, I can't love the way God does, and I still would not give those donuts to my boy because I knew his dinner was better and he needed to wait for that. So if me and my humanness could love my child that way, imperfectly, you imagine the perfect love of the Father who literally says, just wait, child, dinner's in an hour. I've got something so good for you coming. And that's the difference between like a non-believer, someone who doesn't know Jesus, can't have the capacity to know that because God doesn't have dinner for them in an hour. Whatever happens to them is going to happen because God doesn't have their lives planned out. Jeremiah 29:11 doesn't go for non-believers. It goes for believers. I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a hope and a future and not to harm you. That's for you and I. That's for believers. And so if he has a plan for you, and I believe, as Romans 8:28 says, that it is for my good, that because I'm called according to his purpose and that he loves me. So because I know those things are true, then I must trust that dinner is in an hour. That's the discontentment. That's the contentment that we seek. And so if you're in that place right now where you are having a hard time with being content, then please stop looking at your husband or your children or your clothes or your house or your job or whatever. Ask God for those things, and if he says, wait, child, then recognize it's because he has something better, and realize that you're having a hard time with that because there's a crack in your vertical. There is a place where you need to go back and know this God who loves you more than anything in the world. Isaiah wrote this in Isaiah 40, verse 28. He said, have you never heard? Have you never understood? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of all the earth. He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depth of his understanding. What Isaiah is saying there is, why are you discontent? Why are you worried? Haven't you heard about this God who's literally looking at you and saying, I got dinner in an hour, child? This is the creator of the entire, not just this universe, all universes. Everything. And he's saying, I can do all things and I will do them for your good. This is the one that we can trust no matter what. Now, in your book, you're going to meet a woman named Susan, and Susan was very discontent with just about everything. And I had to teach her and show her that this was actually a manifestation of that crack in her vertical relationship. It wasn't about all these people and these things. It was about not knowing this God who had dinner for her in an hour. And you're also going to read the beautiful story of the contentment of Paul and Silas when they were in prison, of all places. In both of those stories, and there are the questions that follow those as well, the role, the job here, the point of those things is to get you to the place of seeing where is your crack. And I'm telling you, the crack is in your relationship with Christ, but what have you missed? What have you missed about him? It'll go down to trust. So study these men who knew God, and know that Susan surely needed to see God and needed to remember that, and his excellent, steadfast character. You and I do too. So God bless you. I'll see you next time.